The noise had been running for 71 hours before they sent me up the mountain to kill it. Not a distress signal. Not a calibration ping. Just a tone, low, steady, about 40 Hz if you pressed your ear to the right wall of the settlement hall, vibrating through the rock of the Tereth Plateau like a second heartbeat that didn't match anyone's pulse. 3 days of it. The settlers below said it was coming from the old array. They weren't wrong. Tereth Station had been decommissioned for 11 years. Before that it had been a long-haul relay post for deep space survey traffic, and before that, according to the Heritage Registry, it had been something else entirely. Something the predecessor civilization left behind. Something nobody had managed to fully power on in 200 years of trying. I wasn't there to power it on. I was there to stop a noise complaint. My name is Cale Morrow. I'm a relay maintenance technician, mid-grade civilian contractor. I've worked dead arrays for 16 years, the kind of postings nobody else wants, out on the edge of settled space where the equipment is old and the budgets are older. I carry a diagnostic kit, a portable uplink, and a thermos of bad coffee. I am not a scientist. I am not a pilot or an explorer or any kind of man who gets written about. I fix things that hum when they shouldn't. I park the crawler at the base of the access road and walk the last half kilometre because the road had washed out 3 winters back and nobody had seen the point in repairing it. The array came into view as I cleared the ridge line. The Vorreth Dish. Even dead, it was something. 90 metres across, a great pale bowl of machined predecessor alloy aimed at a point in the sky roughly 12 degrees off the ecliptic, immovable, or so the record said, the azimuth drive having seized in its final calibrated position before decommissioning. The support mast rose 40 metres from the equipment bunker, covered in carved channels that the heritage surveys described as decorative and which I had always privately suspected were something else. Dust and 11 years of weather had softened every hard edge. The whole thing looked like a monument to patience, maybe, or to waiting. The tone was louder here. I could feel it in my back teeth. I ran a quick passive scan from the ridge, purely procedural, habit, and got what I expected. 0 power draw from the station grid, 0 signal transmission, dead panels across every frequency. The tone was subradio. Mechanical resonance, probably. Something in the feed assembly vibrating at a fixed frequency. I'd seen it before in old arrays when the internal dampers failed. You replace the damper mounts, the noise stops, you build 2 hours and go home. I walked down to the primary dish face. The feed horn was at the focal point, a predecessor-made cone of dark metal, 3 meters long, aimed at the center of the bowl from above, suspended on 4 struts. To reach the manual interrupt, I had to climb the service ladder on the east strut, get to the maintenance platform, and toggle a physical cutoff switch mounted directly on the feed horn housing. Simple. I'd done equivalent work 100 times. I climbed the ladder. The tone was very loud up here, not in my ears exactly, more in my sternum, a pressure rather than a sound. I stepped onto the platform, steadied myself against the strut, and reached out with my bare right hand. I'd taken my glove off to get better grip on the toggle, and laid my palm flat against the side of the feed horn housing. Every dead panel on the Vorreth Dish lit up at once. I don't mean a flicker. I mean a hard, full, immediate ignition. Every carved channel on the mast going amber, then white, then a colour I don't have a word for that sat between blue and something my eyes weren't equipped to name. The bowl hummed. The azimuth drive, seized for 11 years, turned. Not far. Maybe 3 degrees. Enough to shift the aim point by several 100,000 kilometres of sky. The settlement below would have seen the movement. Someone was already going to be calling the emergency line. I took my hand off the housing. The panels stayed lit. I climbed down the ladder faster than I'd climbed up and put 20 metres between myself and the mast, and then I stopped, because I am a relay maintenance technician and I have been in the presence of a lot of malfunctioning equipment, and this did not feel like a malfunction. Malfunctions are chaotic. They arc and spark and fail in half a dozen directions at once. This was orderly. This was deliberate. The light running up and down the mast channels was cycling in a pattern, the same sequence, repeated, varying only in speed, as if it was searching through something. A library. A catalogue. Looking for a match. The station's emergency AI came online. I heard it through my earpiece, the automated voice dry and precise. Power event detected at Tereth Station. Attempting grid isolation. Grid isolation failed. Attempting local cutoff. Local cutoff failed. Contacting regional authority. Regional authority contacted. Estimated response time, 4 hours, 20 minutes. 4 hours. The array lit up like a second sun at the top of a dead mountain, and help was 4 hours away, and I was alone. I stood there in the wind and looked at it. The bowl had shifted again, maybe another 2 degrees, and I realized with a slow, clarifying chill that it was tracking me. Not the sky. Me. The focal point of a 90-meter predecessor antenna was aimed at a single mid-grade civilian contractor standing in the dirt at its base, and as I stepped left to test it, the bowl moved left, a smooth, unhurried correction, and as I stepped right it moved right, and it kept its aim on me the way a compass keeps its aim on north. I should have walked back to the crawler and waited. I walked toward the mast instead. I've thought about why, in the years since. The most honest answer I can give is that it didn't feel like a threat. I have been near threatening things. Equipment under load, volatile cargo, once a structural failure in a relay tower on a moon with very thin emergency services, and they all carry a quality I can only describe as wrongness, a wrongness you feel in your gut before your brain catches up. This carried nothing of the kind. What it carried was expectation. A patient, enormous expectation. The way a room feels when someone has been waiting in it for a very long time. I stopped at the base of the mast and put my hand back on the metal. The mast channels went still. Every light on the array slowed to a single pulse, one breath of white light, deep and slow, and then steady. The tone in my sternum changed. It had been a search frequency, I understood now, even as I couldn't have explained what I meant by that. It changed to something else. A tone of arrival. A tone that said, "Here." Then the dish spoke to me. Not through a speaker. Not through my earpiece or any frequency my equipment could have registered. The words arrived the way a vibration arrives. Through my hand on the mast, up my arm, into my chest, and then directly into something that was neither ear nor mind but sat between them. One line. 6 words. Delivered with the absolute, unhurried certainty of something that has been prepared to say this for a very long time and is saying it now exactly as it intended to. Child of the first orbit. The lights on the array settled. The bowl found its new position and held. The tone in my sternum went quiet for the first time in 71 hours. Quiet across the whole plateau, I learned later, the settlement below going briefly, collectively still as the vibration they'd stopped noticing simply ceased. The wind came back. A bird somewhere on the south ridge called once and was quiet. I stood at the base of the mast with my hand on the metal and I tried to understand what had just happened to me. What I knew. The Vorreth Dish was a predecessor-built deep space contact array. The predecessors had been spacefaring for tens of thousands of years before humans reached this part of space. The heritage surveys had catalogued the array systems as inert, its activation protocols lost, its purpose unknown. 200 years of contact specialists and xenoarchaeologists and well-funded research teams had attempted calibrated signal contact and got nothing. The array was classified as permanently dormant. What I now suspected, standing there in the wind, none of them had touched it. Not barehanded. Not like that. I'm not a researcher. I can't tell you the mechanism. What I can tell you is what I've since been able to piece together from a xenoarchaeology team that arrived 11 days later and spent 4 months running analysis on the array and on the medical scans they talked me into providing. The Vorreth Dish was not a passive receiver. It was a contact array built around a biological key, a signal protocol embedded not in any machine humanity had yet built, but in a specific genetic expression carried in a specific nervous system. The predecessors had not built the array for any civilization that might happen to find it. They had built it for a civilization that had earned the right to operate it, and the way you earned that right, apparently, was by spending long enough in deep space that the experience of it changed you at a level that persisted. The first humans to operate deep space relay arrays, 300 years ago, a generation of technicians who lived months at a time in high-orbit stations running signal traffic across the void, had carried that experience in their bodies. Their children had inherited a residual expression of it. Their children's children, slightly less. Most lines had bred it out entirely within 4 or 5 generations. Some hadn't. I am a relay maintenance technician, mid-grade civilian contractor. My mother was a relay tech. Her father was a relay tech. Her father's father crewed the high-orbit stations in the 2nd generation of deep space operations, when the work was still dangerous and the equipment was still half understood, and the people who did it were considered by most of settled humanity to be a slightly strange and specialized type of person who found comfort in frequencies and distances that most people preferred not to think about. The predecessors, apparently, had thought rather highly of that type of person. The xenoarchaeologists told me the array was now fully operational. They told me it had uplinked, in the first hour after activation, to a network of predecessor relay stations distributed across 11 star systems, all of them dormant for the same 2 centuries, all of them lighting up in sequence like a string of signals finally connected. They told me the amount of archived data in that network was, in their professional estimation, more than the current total of human xenoarchaeological records by a factor they weren't comfortable stating out loud. They asked me if I would be willing to serve as the array's primary operator while they worked to develop a broader access protocol. I told them I'd have to check my contract terms. That got a laugh. I hadn't meant it as a joke, but I let it stand. What I think about now, when I think about that morning on the plateau, and I think about it often, in the way you think about the moment a thing you didn't know was a threshold turns out to have been won, is not the lights, or the movement of the bowl, or even the words in my chest. I think about the tone. The search signal. 71 hours of a low, steady pulse running through the rock of the mountain, through the walls of the settlement hall, into the backteeth of everyone within 6 kilometers, because the array had done the only thing it could do once it detected a possible match in the vicinity. It called out. It had been calling out, the xenoarchaeologists estimated, intermittently, for 200 years. Every time a relay tech passed through Tereth Station, and they had, over the years, several times, for the same class of routine maintenance that brought me there, the array had run its search. Found nothing close enough. Gone quiet. Waited. I was the closest match it had found. I think about that. The patience of the thing. 2 centuries of waiting, sending out the same careful inquiry into the air, not desperate, not degrading, just holding the question open, holding the network dark, holding the data in trust for the hands it was built to recognize. And I think about my grandfather's grandfather standing his watch on a high-orbit relay platform 300 years ago, running signal traffic into the dark with no idea that the dark was running a quiet, very long inventory of exactly who was out there doing that. The noise has been gone for 4 years now. I'm still here. Still mid-grade. Still carry the same diagnostic kit, the same portable uplink. The thermos is a better one. The xenoarchaeology team gave it to me at the end of the first field season, as a joke gift with a real warmth behind it, and I've used it every day since. The Vorreth Dish is aimed 11 degrees off the ecliptic. Locked on a point I can now read the coordinates of in a script that took me 8 months to learn the basics of. Every morning I climb the service ladder to the maintenance platform, and I put my bare hand on the feed horn housing, and the array runs its startup sequence for me, and the network opens. I don't know yet what's in it. We are still in the early stages. But the array knows me, and it opens, and somewhere across 11 star systems, predecessor relay stations light up one by one in sequence as the contact protocol propagates outward, and I stand on a maintenance platform on a cold mountain on the edge of settled space and I run the signal traffic. It's the only work I've ever known. Turns out that was the point.